Call the January 18th, 2024 meeting of the Charter Revision Commission to order. The first order of business will be to approve the minutes of the December 21st, 2023 meeting. Does anybody have any changes or additions or corrections?
No, it was a little short meeting.
It was.
Yes, it was.
Peter has moved, I'm assuming that we just had to approve the minutes.
I did.
All those in favor? Aye. 5-0. We're up to old business is reviewing the, our schedule that we figured out last meeting. And as far as I know, nothing has changed unless anybody has decided they want to change something at this point. It's exactly what it was when we looked at it in December. One of the things, and I don't know if this is germane to what we're gonna talk about, like looking this over, but my thought, but I'm gonna do it anyway, because it's just us. My thought is, February and May is when we're gonna want to talk about town government and RTM. My thought, and Patrick, you might be able to advise us on this thing. Would it be possible for us or somebody to send an email out to all town meeting members if we were to draft something and say, with the Charter Revision Commission, we do this? Okay, that'd be good.
Yeah, that's doable.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? Because we gotta figure out a way to really get out to people. So if that's okay. Okay, so we'll
Yeah, I posted something on the Facebook page about this with the agenda and everything. And a couple people liked it. But
Right,
obviously nobody
not enough to come.
And it had the link on it and everything.
Yeah.
So,
All right, well, we'll try to gin stuff up for at least we need people for the RTM discussion, but let them know about everything else too. Okay, I just don't wanna, and I was thinking about maybe writing either a letter to the editor of the paper, or we'll do a really bigger press release that has everything. And I know we're gonna have Seth help us figure something out within the town newsletter and stuff, so. We're gonna have to go on more of a PR offensive. So,
Yep.
I'm gonna work on that if that's okay with everybody.
yes.
Okay. All right,
We can put that out, whenever you're ready. And
Okay.
it'll take a little bit of maneuvering, but
No.
Not much.
okay. I'm gonna do it sooner rather than later so people have notice.
Great.
And then we'll get crowds. Now what we're gonna talk about tonight is the Energy Committee, School Board, and the history, what do we wanna include in history of town government? I talked to Bob Fisher, who's gonna zoom in so he can talk to us about the school board. And I told him, I'm assuming he's not on yet, Patrick, is he?
Yep.
Oh, yes, okay.
He just came in, as did David Levenbach.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so we can get Bob up.
Oh, you wanna bring him up?
Oh, yeah, because we'll do it, I told them we'd do it as soon as possible so we didn't have to hang out. Then we're-
Where's Mr. Bob? Come on, Bob.
He's gone. Is he gone?
There we go.
There he is.
Is he there? Can he hear us?
Well, he's
Can you
in the
hear us?
process of, it reads connecting to audio.
Right.
Bob, as you know, is extremely tech savvy.
And he's in a part of the world where there's so
Hey, Bob, can you hear us?
He said something.
Can you hear me now?
Yay!
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great,
Good.
great. And
Thank you, Patrick.
Patrick, can you
It wasn't me, sir, that was you.
turn the screen around a little bit so that,
sounds good. Great.
here we go.
Great.
Well, then Stephen can't see anything.
I know Bob's face. He's
And by way of background, we've asked Bob to come to meeting tonight because in the charter, there are references to the school board. And obviously, the school system has changed recently, so what's in it is the charter now about the schools means nothing. So we had talked about whether we take everything out and have nothing put back in, or do we make some kind of reference, a placeholder, so if something were to change, we wouldn't have to do a lot. So I talked to Bob and I had like a 2-minute conversation about this, and he's gonna offer us his advice on what he would recommend that we do. So I'll pass it over to you, Bob.
Okay, thank you. My sense, given the, how the state has essentially taken over all of the school governance and, well, governance, maybe not administration, that Article 6, I think it is, in the charter that talks about the school board or school directors' duties, responsibilities, et cetera, that I think all of that needs to come out, but it may make sense. And I think elsewhere where we talk about election of school directors, we'll have to do a word search and see where school directors come up throughout the charter. But my sense is that we should have some paragraph that talks about schools in Brattleboro and say that the governance of the schools and election of any school officers shall be in accordance with Vermont Statutes Title 16, and as may be amended from time to time. And then this is the part where I leave it to some of this committee's creativity of to say, if at some point we get back to having local boards, that then the town would elect its own officers, but we don't really know pursuant to what yet, because that law has not changed. So we may just want to make reference to Title 16 as may be amended from time to time. And then if we need to make an amendment to the charter, we can do that at that time. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's just my thoughts on that topic.
What does everybody think? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Seems like it's tending away from local school boards, so I don't know that it's necessary, but I think it is prudent to have it.
I agree with Hannah. It strikes me that we want to be cautious about having things in here that just point to statute, because statute exists and applies to us. And in this particular case, because of the structural change that is still pretty recent and very significant in terms of the history of how the schools were governed, it feels right to just point to that in the way that Bob has described, but as minimally as possible. So I think we shouldn't put in language that tries to predict the future, but just reference the statute as it may be amended from time to time.
So I agree with that. Bob's recommendation was to at least consider including a second sentence that referred to the possibility that there might, at some time in the future, be local elections for school officers. And I don't think that's necessary to include. I would just refer over to the current statutes as they might be amended.
Are we all okay with that? Now, this is our first, like, we all agree on this. Is this a David and Hannah draft something?
Yes.
Hey.
Yes, I was gonna move that we empower David and Hannah to draft this. For the next meeting? Can you?
Okay,
Will do.
does that make sense?
Yeah, we
I'll
can
put it on the agenda.
also take out the other references to.
Yeah.
school board.
Yes.
So between now and then, we will coordinate with Patrick and Jessica to get the current version of the document, and then to begin the process of making a strikeout and in edited version.
That's exciting, yes.
Good.
And I'm happy to help both David and Hannah with that, so.
Great,
Okay.
thank you,
Thank you.
thank you. Oh, there's Patrick.
I can circulate a Word version of the present charter tomorrow if that's suitable.
That's great, thanks.
Cool.
I don't know if you want to have a formal motion.
Do we want to?
I would think if we're making formal decisions.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
should.
So I move that we strike all the provisions in the current charter relating to governance of schools and election of officers, and place them with a single reference that those matters are governed by applicable provisions of Title 16 as amended from time to time.
Great. David has made a motion, which I will not repeat because I didn't write it down fast enough. So all those in,
I will second.
oh yes, second. All those in favor of the motion to make the changes that David suggested to the charter in relation to schools, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. So we did our first formal action. Super. Yay. Yay.
Are we done yet?
You could be.
We're done. Thank you, Bob.
Well, thank you, and thank you for letting me do it by Zoom because I'm actually going to be early to the next Zoom meeting at 7 o'clock, so that's fabulous. So
Great.
thank you very much, and unless you need me for anything else, I'll sign off.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the Energy Committee, and as we know, Django and Frick were at the last meeting and made some suggestions. And what I just want to, we have a sheet, it's actually, Django, what you sent to Patrick. And it's in front of us, it's the one that's the email that has Patrick's name on the top.
Are these those? Yeah.
And there are three.
Let's see what I wrote.
See what you wrote. There are three points that came up at the last meeting and are included here in this, and I'm just gonna say what they are so we're all on the same page and TV land knows what we're about to talk about. The first point is to add we're not gonna take out layer of coal because we know we can't, but it's to add a layer of carbon. That's the first suggestion. The second suggestion is does the work of the Energy Committee, or does the work of the Energy Coordinator go to the Energy Committee? The other one was, do we put the town energy goals, specific energy goals, emission standards and everything into the town charter? The other thing that I had, which is not in this memo, so I got a fourth, is should the Energy Committee be added to the charter because it's not there now. So those are the four things: aware of carbon, and have the Energy Committee do what the Energy Coordinator would do, put the energy goals in, and put the Energy Committee in the charter. One of the things we asked was, it came up, the difference between like the Energy Committee, the Energy Coordinator, and the Sustainability Coordinator, that came up. And what role does the Sustainability Coordinator play in relation to what the Energy Committee does, and does the Sustainability Coordinator do what a layer of carbon would do? We had all of those questions, moving forward. So I don't know if it makes sense if Stephen, you want to give us like a Reader's Digest version of what the Sustainability Coordinator.
Come over here.
Sure. Wherever. Is this? Right here?
And
Sure.
the official.
Sure.
Give us the sort of like a Reader's Digest version on what the Sustainability Coordinator does.
Sorry, is he the sustainability?
Oh, yeah,
I
sure.
Yes, I am that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Introduce
It has been for
yourself.
several years, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So I'm Stephen Dodson,
Whenever
I'm the
you're ready, I want you to
Sustainability
know
Coordinator. This was a new position as of February 2020. And the starting of that auspicious start date definitely shaped some of the priorities of the role. It's focused on energy, but I would say broadly defined to be energy savings, cost savings, things that make Brattleboro livable for longer for everyone. So we've been looking at things around food security and food access, because that's been such a big point of tension in the community, a big challenge. I collect a lot of different metrics. I can give you guys a lot of different data. I do feel as though it is my responsibility to provide reports around carbon emissions, greenhouse gases, our water usage, our waste usage. And we've been doing some assessment and cataloging of certain aspects of that. We have plans to do more in the future, and some of the energy reporting is actually getting standardized right now at the state level. There's been kind of an argument about how do you do these measurements and how do you make sure everybody's using the same yardstick, in a sense. And things that we haven't counted before in town energy reports that were produced by Paul Cameron, I believe, we would certainly be counting a different way now. So it's almost an apples to oranges in some cases piece. So I've been very clear with the Energy Committee. I feel the responsibilities and the actionable items and what they're talking about in terms of the reporting function, that's my job. And it needs staff to support it. It needs staff to make it happen. I like having the Energy Committee to bounce off of. I like having them to help me reach out into the community further to achieve some of the goals of the town and to help articulate what those goals should be. The goals you see in that email are goals that they passed about 1.5 years ago, I would say, at this point. So when this has come up in conversations, I've said to them, I get what you're doing. I see the intent, but I don't know that the charter is the right place for these things to be included. And I would hate to feel as though some of the details that go into the charter end up painting us into a corner in terms of what I have to report and what happens on a year-to-year basis. I think we need some flexibility in that. So yeah, I can. This is more than a summation. I'm sorry, I just kind of went for it. Do you need any more clarification about my role or any other particulars? I staff the Energy Committee. We have a meeting next Monday if you want to come. Just warned it.
Sorry.
Go first.
No,
We have a hand up.
David
Do you
Levenbach.
want to hear from who's online first?
Yeah, that's David Levenbach. You can see what he's.
Thank you, David Levenbach, District 3, and Ware of Cole. I don't know if somebody from the Energy Committee wishes to speak in favor of the proposal. I think it makes sense for them to go first and me make my comments afterwards,
Okay.
but I'll be here.
Yeah, we won't forget you there.
Thank you.
I do need to make the comment that the Energy Committee has not officially passed a motion and approved any sort of proposal. So you're hearing from individuals who are members of the Energy Committee.
David, you have a question?
I do have a comment. So that was way helpful. Thank you.
Oh, good.
I didn't know exactly what the role of the sustainability coordinator was. I think we might consider the possibility, as we're restructuring the charter and updating its provisions, to include a definition of what the sustainability coordinator and the energy committee do. I'm not sure that we want the sustainability coordinator necessarily to be a charter mandated provision, charter mandated position, but I think having that definition would provide some overview. And it'd be nice to have you, if you're willing when the time comes, to prepare just a paragraph, if that's something that the commission thinks is appropriate, defining what's the current role of the sustainability coordinator, maybe to have the same thing from the energy committee.
Maya.
How is the Energy Committee appointed? Are you a select board appointed?
Yeah, there's an application on the town website.
But you're
And if
not,
any of you would like to join us, we could use some extra.
but you're not listed in the current list of committees in the charter.
Yeah,
So
that's what baffles me.
That's an omission that we have to correct.
Right, because if we put them in, then we can put it makes sense to have the definition, like it's,
Yeah, was this, I thought this was when we were discussing where it was like, are we going to put all the committees in or should we take them all out or put it in an appendix? But I think regardless of what we do, the energy committee should be included in that decision. Like if they're all coming out, then they all go out.
right,
Or if they're all gonna go in appendix, they all go there, but we can add the energy committee at that point.
Yeah.
In whatever manner we decide.
yeah. And it was also the human services was in there too, where we put a definition of them in, so it's sort of like the energy committee and the human services. Human services is in there, but there's no definition of what
And
they
the
do.
process, because
Right.
that's always a
And there's no
confusing
process.
thing, town
Exactly.
meeting to town meeting.
Would you have another question, Maya?
Yeah, I had a comment from Millicent Cooley, and I had copies, I think there are a couple on the table there. And basically, she didn't want a weigher of carbon, but she wanted, she thought the sustainability coordinator should fill that role, and I think you agree. And she thought that you or somebody should report regularly to the town about how we're doing in meeting those goals that were set. I think that sums up what she said.
And Millicent is the former chair of the Energy Committee, and we worked together for a while. Yeah, so we know each other.
Oh, Patrick.
She's also in the meeting if you wish to hear from her.
Oh,
That might be
yes.
Tony.
Yeah,
I
that
didn't
actually
realize
might be
she
Tony
was there.
Duncan.
Oh, it might be Tony Duncan.
He uses, I think.
Who
they have
uses
the same-
Millicent?
They share an account.
If Tony or Millicent, if Millicent was there and wants to say something, let us know.
Oh, it is
There's
Millicent.
Millicent.
Did I characterize your comments correctly, Millicent?
Well, I don't necessarily think that the sustainability coordinator, pretty close. I don't think the sustainability coordinator should necessarily do that. It's up to the town whether, and the definition of his role. But the town has agreed to fulfill some climate goals. And so I think it makes sense for the town to report on how we're doing on those goals. And if that's not going to happen, then what are some reasons why the town wouldn't do it? The Energy Committee webpage has those goals, has the promise from the town that was passed in 2020 to support the climate goals. So anyway, that's kind of whether the sustainability coordinator does it or somebody else does it. That's not my opinion or my place, but just the fact that it is the town's goals seems to me that the town makes sense to do it. And I want them to do it. I think I would love to have that information. I don't know how it would be done, but yeah.
And we're working on that, just as.
Yeah, I think Stephen said earlier that he was working on a report and doing the measurements in a way that was consistent with what she went away, with what the.
Oh, I'm sorry, you want her back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was saying, I think that Stephen is working on a report and doing the measurements in a way that's consistent with how everybody else in the state is gonna do them. Yay, is that,
Yes,
Great.
yes. Part of what
Great.
we've been dealing with is transitioning leadership in our finance department too, and also financial systems for tracking our assets and all of this. So it's been kind of pushed off down the road, but we're trying to focus on that in this upcoming year. Comprehensive greenhouse gas inventory. And the state is coming out with guidance that will standardize this and streamline it further. You've heard the Clean Heat Standard that and Act. that is a missing piece for doing the wider community footprint. It's not too difficult to say what the town and its buildings and vehicles are doing. It's much more difficult to say what the community's doing because private fuel dealers aren't required to provide data on how much and to whom they're selling. They will after that clean heat standards is put into place, and that will make tracking much more effective and straightforward.
Do you have a question, Peter?
I had an observation, but I think it's important that we let this conversation evolve some more, and then I'll be happy to chime in later.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, my argument for having another person, and I don't think that maybe it doesn't need to be in the charter, but I mean, Stephen, like you said, you said like it requires staffing to support you, and you're one guy doing the work of 35 people on a daily basis, and sustainability and these transitions are like that's like a huge, that's a significant amount of work. So the reason that I had wanted to make a layer of carbon was that there is a person whose job it is to support Stephen in whatever way that he needs, and I don't know if you even want that, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it as a committee, which is an error in our organization. But I think that this is a big job, and we need more people. Like we need all hands on deck. And so to that effect, if there was a person in the charter whose job it was, we need a baseline of data to know where we're going, what direction we're headed, and that's something that is reflected, I think, on a national level. Like we need to be hearing like, okay, how are we doing in comparison to the goals that we've set for ourselves. And that's like a big missing piece in the sustainability problem, I think.
May I speak to that? So I appreciate you're looking for more support for both the town's goals and my role. What I think is that we should focus on getting 7 members on the Energy Committee. I feel like we would be hard pressed to find somebody to take on a very concrete and substantive chunk of work alongside me when we're struggling to get commitment just to do the regular committee meetings. But one thing that I've thought, if we're trying to navigate this and just have this kind of be a focal point of the committee, of my work, what if the chair of the Energy Committee was also automatically the weigher of carbon? That to me could resolve, and it would emphasize the intent and keep your intention there, and it would make sure that it's working in line with the committee and in line with my role. Maybe that is a good third way. Frick says thumbs up. Okay. So
does Millicent.
As long as we're getting, as long as we're getting it done, that's fine.
Hannah, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just sort of, based on what I'm hearing from Django and Stephen, and it seems like maybe the charter is not the appropriate place for this, because we don't want to constrict you from what's happening at the state level, and we don't want to sort of create these like conflicting reporting requirements and things like that. And so something that I would encourage, Django, if this is something that you're interested in, is to maybe go to the state legislature, because this is a statewide created position for all towns, and you could probably, distribute a lot more resources if you were to change this on a state level than just on the town of Brattleboro level. But it's just, I'm just not sure that the charter is necessarily the correct place for something like this.
Now, can I ask Stephen a question? Because what you just brought up was having the chair of the Energy Committee be the weigher of carbon. We have like fence viewers, weigher of coal, like these things. Is the weigher, are we making a job, or are we just making a thing? You know what I mean? And I think to me, that's sort of like my problem. Like, I don't see us, if we're creating a job, that's a lot different than giving somebody a title
Yeah,
for
and
something.
I don't think we can create a job.
We can't create a job.
My preference would be to not do anything. Would be to get rid of it and just let it go. If we need to do something, I'm saying, let's make sure it's in line with our existing structures and the existing staff people that are doing that work.
Right.
And yes, in essence, it's a title that gives emphasis to a certain part of the work, but it has no authority in the same way that the original wearer of Cole did, right? That was state authority handed down through the town, and the town says to a third party, you get to decide who's fair when, and look at the scales when Cole is weighed. But there's no authority. I know it's so old time to think about, but there's no similar authority for people to go and work with the fuel companies and with people getting their deliveries of propane and say, like, look at the tank, look at a ticket. There's nothing there, So I would I'd rather have nothing at all, but if it has to be there, put it in line with everything else.
David?
Can I ask a process question, just to maybe focus and streamline this discussion? There was one part of this agenda item that deals with it says Energy Committee Sustainability. Really, the first inquiry is there going to be a reference to the Sustainability Coordinator and the Energy Committee in the charter?
Yep.
That's one question. There's then a series of proposals that some individuals from the Energy Committee have forwarded to us. And I think that they were discussed last week, but I'd like to make sure that those individuals have had the opportunity to present affirmatively what it is they're hoping to see.
Yeah.
So that we can then discuss that knowing what it is that they want. I read the email, but I'd like to know that so that we can then, because we're sort of going around it backwards, seems to me, And I'd like to hear from them and then have a discussion about it, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, that's totally okay. So we have the email that Django, this was your idea. Do you want to give us and everybody listening, just?
Yeah, and again, I want to be, yes, and again, I want to be clear that, so we never were able to discuss this as a committee. And this might look different if we had discussed it as a committee, and we were supposed to discuss it on Monday, and we were not able to because we were not able to meet. Or 2 Mondays ago. And last Monday, actually. So basically, our concern, and these, proposals are coming from myself, Frick, and another member of the committee, Dave Lewis, who can't make it tonight. But we were basically a little working group that was working on this, but so it's just us three as citizens. But basically our concern was, okay, let's clean up some of the wording in the charter. Like, why do we have an energy coordinator and there's no energy coordinator? We have a sustainability coordinator and we have an energy committee. Like, where are all the can we put all the parts together to give it a little more structure? Maybe structure the energy committee's position in the town charter a little more. And then the other concern was that there's no baseline of data to see where these goals are, where we're at, what's our status as a town. And so we thought maybe the town charter was the way to go with establishing that, or maybe accelerating the process of it. We weren't able to talk with Stephen, so I wish we had, because then maybe, again, this proposal would look differently. But our concern is that we don't have information to go off of. So that's where that position was, that's where that Where of Carbon idea came from. And then maybe we had thought, okay, in the charter, let's say that there's a person to establish the data, and then there's the energy committee who does something with that data and who works with Stephen to say, okay, here's all the pieces we have, here's where we're at, here's our context, let's figure out how to move forward. So those kind of two pieces. And then of course there was the third part of having these goals in the town charter, which the town passed. And we thought it might be a good idea to have them in the charter to kind of, make it a little more official and say, this is the Brattleboro's constitution. If it's in there, the chances of stuff happening are, I think, more likely. So that's my reasoning for those three things. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Anyway,
And one thing, because we have somebody's gonna watch this at 2 a.m, state your name.
Django Grace.
Yeah.
And I don't know my district.
And then Frick, if
William
you say
Street.
who you are.
Frick's Bright District 3, member of the Energy Committee. RTM member district. What was 3, what is it, 7 now? 7, 8, 9? 9, right. I'll figure it out one of these days. So I remember Paul Cameron well. I thought he did a fantastic job with ridiculous pittance that we gave him. I was thrilled that an RTM that I didn't attend shoved the sustainability coordinator down the town's throat and gave him a decent budget. And I think, you know, having Stephen in particular in that role has been fantastic. And I don't want to mess that up. I do have similar concerns to Django about getting things sort of more formalized in some way in the charter to say that we take, to me, the word I would use is resilience, which is cast a broader net, but I think in a way that is sort of mutually supportive and deals with a lot of the things that Steve has been trying to support as an individual, but I think we as a town should be very seriously looking at energy security, food security, building a stronger interconnected community, and I see things that are headed in the opposite direction, like losing places like Dunkley's Machine Shop, which I think having that kind of resource is key to being truly resilient. And then I see things like the Rich Earth Institute and Bonneville Environmental Aid Center, and unfortunately the Strolling of the Heifers, which had a strong sustainability push, doesn't seem to be active anymore. But there's Green Building News and other organizations focused around the built environment, and I would like to see that as I would like to see Brattleboro as a hub for resilience and sustainability. And we have a lot of pieces of the puzzle, and I would love to see a more more public commitment to ongoing resilience. And I don't think that being a public good ever goes away, regardless of what's happening and how good we're doing with energy or anything else. That is just like democracy, it's always a work in progress. So I think some mention of that, and the broader the better, belongs in the charter.
I don't want to forget David Levenbach is
Right.
on too. I don't want to cut you off though.
Yeah. He
You
is,
seem like you seem like
he is
you're
very
too.
proud of the fact that he has a job that doesn't
Yeah.
require any responsibilities anymore. And I wouldn't object to giving him some, but that seems like it's a separate issue.
Thank you. I think I'm on. Let me preface my remarks by saying that I do believe that climate change is a crisis sort of issue, and am generally open to hearing, I'm fully open to hearing proposals to take steps to mitigate the crisis locally. The idea that the Energy Committee would be staffed by the Sustainability Coordinator makes a great deal of sense to me. I don't recall elsewhere in the charter whether it indicates for particular committees who staffs them. That seems to me an administrative decision. I would be hard pressed to think that the sustainability, that the Energy Committee would be, for example, staffed by the Human Resources Director. It seems pretty obvious to me that sustainability is the logical thing. So unless you want to include in the charter who staffs the particular committees, which I think is ill-advised, I would leave that to administration. Okay. As to carbon weighting, I can see or carbon weighing, I can see the point, but I'm struck by recalling today's Deere article, where there's some fairly bitter differences at the state level about the methodologies for doing that. And so I think until the state has agreed on a procedure and supporting mechanisms, I think it's going to be a challenge. I think it's good for the Sustainability Coordinator, the Energy Committee, to look at what is town produced, but as Mr. Dotson says, going beyond that is, as things stand right now, difficult. The last point I would make is I would argue against putting the energy policy goals in the charter because we don't generally indicate substantive goals in a procedural document like the charter as in the US Constitution. However, it seems to me that you might amend the preamble, which talks about the common good, respecting the will of the people, blah, blah, blah. I think you could very well include something in there about the fact that the town is committed to maintaining a sustainable community. And that would include not only climate issues, but other aspects of sustainability. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
But I thank Rick again.
Thank you.
Can I ask a very narrow question?
Oh, yeah.
Are you, did you raise your hand too?
Yeah.
You go first.
Millicent also raised her hand. My question, I'm looking at the current charter, and it says Town Energy Coordinator, 1-year term. The Energy Coordinator created by the Vermont Legislature reviews energy-related materials received by the town and advises the town on energy conservation measures. And then it has this funny sentence, he reviews as needed, whatever that means.
We're gonna fix gender pronouns in this.
Yeah, no, I don't know what reviews as needed means. But does that mean that we can't take the energy coordinator out of the charter?
Well, that's what,
If it says it's created by the Vermont legislature?
that's why I think if Hannah's looking that up, I went on today and Googled, and it says, because Google's always right, it says that the legislature, and maybe Stephen knows, it doesn't mandate an energy coordinator, it allows the town to establish an energy, or, get an
I
energy
believe that's
coordinator.
correct.
Yeah,
That's my understanding.
yeah, so
Okay,
we
so
don't
that's-
have to have one.
So that's different than requiring, like the weigher of coal is required.
Just, you have like more insight.
Yeah, I think that speaks to a broader point that we need to wrestle with as we go forward. I don't want to bog down the conversation about this specific piece right now, but there's a lot that's in statute. There's far more that's in statute that enables the town to do things that, and in some cases requires the town to do things that is not set forth in the charter. And I think we want to be really cautious about putting things in the charter that are just restating what's in the state law, because first of all, the state laws can change, and second of all, because the purpose of the charter is to take what already exists for municipal powers in state law and change that to reflect what we want to be specific in Brattleboro. And so if what we're just saying on any particular topic is we're just putting it in here to reflect what's already in state statute, I feel like that's a mistake because we're not doing that with all the statutes.
Right.
So, but there's nothing, as far as you know, that would prevent us from taking out the town energy coordinator and putting in a sustainability.
I'm very confident of that, and it's something we could easily confirm with Bob Fisher.
Okay.
The language of the energy coordinator statute says that a legislative body may appoint an energy coordinator, whereas the Ware of Coal says that they shall be sworn, so.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Clarifying question. Is the wearer of coal required to be a resident of Brattleboro? Because
That's a question for Bob.
I'm from Putney, for instance, right? If that could create a wrinkle, just to
I
say.
can read you the entire statute, it's 2 sentences.
No, oh, yeah, if it's 2 sentences, I'm gonna say no.
This is 24 VSA 1032, just for whoever's reference. A wearer of coal shall be sworn and shall not be directly or indirectly interested in the sale of coal. Upon request of the seller or purchaser, he or she shall weigh all coal sold in his or her town. So that last, in his or her town, I don't know if that means that it's the town to which you've been appointed as the wearer of coal or the town in which you live, but.
Well, and the other thing about that too is the people like David and other people, like I know people who want to be the fence viewer, be the wearer of coal. You know what I mean? I don't think we're ever going to find, I don't know if you were thinking the sustainability coordinator would automatically be the wearer of coal.
No,
Okay.
I'd rather just let the wearer of coal, the wearer of carbon go.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, because I didn't know what you were asking the town, like what town you lived in.
And I don't think that since you're staff,
Right.
we don't,
That's a different thing.
Right.
yeah.
it's a different than being appointed by the select board.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why, well, I don't want to get bogged down either, but Peter's got a good question, because there are these bigger subjects like that, and then there's the next layer is, do we want to put committees in, and if we do, which ones, and do we want to do definitions? So some of these are just have like, they're a domino effect on every other decision we're gonna make, so. Did you put something?
I had a hand up, but Millicent also had a hand up before.
Oh, Millicent.
She's still waiting.
Okay, hi. I just wanted to say that I'm in support of what Frick and Django's reasons for this. So, I think the Energy Committee itself has been doing some really good work. So that's all I want to say. I haven't been in favor of this particular proposition, but I'm completely in favor of why they want to do it and support the work they're doing. That's all.
Now, David.
Thank you. So first, a very narrow question. In the goals that are said to have been adopted by the select board in November 2020, the first goal is at least 26% reduction from 2005 emissions by 2025. Is there any standard system of measurement that would allow us even to determine whether that has been achieved? And is there any reasonable likelihood that we're going to achieve that goal by 2025 from 2005?
There are formulations and methodologies, but there are numerous ones of them.
So
And
not standard, just a lot.
and that's where it's not
Different matrices.
standardized. It brings up questions of how deep in your operations do you look for energy and for carbon? Do you count the transportation it takes to get your goods to your town and to your offices? Do you count the carbon that's being sequestered by all the farms and forests in your community and have a net carbon analysis? There's a lot of different ways to do it. Everybody's arguing over the way that it should be done. I can tell you, I'm branching off from your
No, I
narrow.
don't need more specifics
Okay.
about that. That was the
Okay.
first part. Are we going to achieve 26% reduction from 2005 to 2025?
Unlikely. But also we're not alone. the rest of the world is on track to miss the targets that we've set,
Oh, thank God.
unfortunately. Yeah, you know, we're in.
It's not just us.
We have a lot of company, but it's bad company. Well, I can tell you in general where things are going and where we've made improvements, but.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that was just a narrow question. If it's time, I have comment about the entirety of the proposal.
Yeah, unless anybody else here has any questions, I think.
So we have yet to make a decision about whether we're going to include all committees and whether we're going to include any specific positions in the charter. And I'll note that somebody said recently about adding something to the preamble
Yeah.
brings to mind that we really should put the preamble deliberately on the agendas to talk about, because we run the risk of the preamble being everybody's wish list,
Right, right,
which I seek to avoid,
right.
but which many single issue people like to pour content into, and that's something we need to address. I don't necessarily mean only single issue people, but people sometimes want to pour content into that. So I asked that be on the agenda going forward, you know, in July or August or whatever, you know. My preference, recognizing that we're dealing with the other decisions, all committees and some positions later, is not to include specific goals in the charter, to not include wear of carbon as a label. But to the extent we decide to include list of committees and certain positions, to include Energy Committee and Sustainability Coordinator. And it seems to me that in drafting those definitions, we might include reference to something like with goals, action steps, and reporting as determined by the select board from time to time. Because that then leaves the administration
Right.
and the specifics of the content to be determined by the board that's charged with day-to-day responsibility. Well, it's actually the town manager, you know, but town manager and select board from time to time. So that's the way I'd like to see it addressed in the charter going forward.
Peter?
I think that is well articulated, and another reason for that last point that you made is circumstances change from time to time. So I think it was David Levenbach, but somebody in the discussion this evening has made the point about our focus in the charter is the structure and procedures, that how we do governance in the town. And the specific policies don't belong here, they belong in ordinances and other documents. And I think that's the point that you made about as the select board may direct from time to time, speaks to this is what was done in 2020, and the world is missing the targets, and there might well be some additional policy making that's actually, you know, on point in terms of ways in which it might be bolder action towards us, you know, getting smarter and better at reducing carbon and, you know, having a greater positive impact on climate change. That this would, you know, at that point, this would no longer be relevant, and we're obviously not going to go back and change the charter, you know, each time that there might be such a policy change. And so I think it's important that it be done in the way that you have described. And I guess I'd like to also echo Millicent in saying I personally feel, and I feel like in the conversation we've now had over multiple meetings around this, that the suggestions you've made, we appreciate the intent of the suggestions you've made, and share the commitment to, you know, we all must find a way to do better, right? And the town has been working on that and obviously needs to work even harder on it. Energy Committee plays a central role in that. So I think it's important to note that the what brought you to us with this is intention and commitment that we share. And it just doesn't feel like the charter is the right place to put these things.
And so I really want to thank you for coming and for raising these issues, the last 2 times.
Sorry, I have a ride waiting outside, and
That's okay, go ahead.
I just want to say my last 2 cents before I go. I'm still going to argue for these provisions being in the town charter. Here's why. Number one, this is not some numbers that the Energy Committee came up with. This is like the brightest scientific minds of the 21st century came together to write these goals. They were in the Paris Accords, they were adopted. This is the global warming. It's kind of played down. The Vermont State Legislature, eventually it's ended up in the hands of the Energy Committee, and the town of Brattleboro adopted it. But these numbers are not made, this is what we have to do scientifically. And you said the charter is you said it, did you say it wasn't procedural, it's for, it is procedural and it's
structure and procedure.
And I think this is a fantastic way to guide procedure. And I think that, these are just words. So if you're gonna put in the preamble, I ask that you just I would advocate that you just don't, because I don't think that's gonna do anything. And I think the only way that this should be included is if it's actually in the charter and if it's actually going to guide action. And you guys are the people who are, writing this and reviewing it. So if you don't think that it's gonna, do anything substantial, then yeah, don't put it in there. But I have faith that this is science, and if we can have a guiding thing in the charter that's these are the scientific goals that we're going to try to adhere to. I don't think this is a policy or process. I think this is a sort of structure that policy should be made around. And those are my 2 cents. And
I want to respond to you really quickly, if I may.
Oh, yeah.
The town plan, we do it once every 10 years. It's coming up to be redone right now. The next 10 years are going to be the definitive 10 years for making those goals happen or not, whether they're met or not. I think the detail and the energy you're bringing could go into drafting the energy section of the town plan and focusing on that, because that's where things really get actionable. It's a plan. There's the structure and the process through the charter, and then that gets articulated over and over again in the plan. So I want to harness the energy you guys are bringing and put it into a fruitful place, because we can get very detailed there and very specific and lift up successes and lessons learned and the whole thing. So I think there's a place for this in the structure and documents of the town. I don't know that this is the right fit.
okay. I have to go. Thank you all.
Django, thanks for coming and thanks for participating.
Thank you for coming out on such a cold night.
You didn't bike here though, dude.
The one time I haven't played.
I think Tony,
You just go put it in there.
Tony did you want to say something, Tony?
Yeah, let me let you go first.
I just wanted to appreciate Django
Oh, yeah.
and the fact that he is, as far as I know, the youngest person ever to get involved on a town committee on this and be active in a constructive way in high school also. I've got an 18-year-old. I'd trade him in a heartbeat for Django. Without a thought. It's yeah, switch him. Yeah.
That's on TV.
I don't have no hesitation. If my son sees it, maybe he'll wake up and start stepping up. I hope he does. I think he's got potential, but anyway. So I think that was some wise counsel there. I do, however, think some mention of resilience in a general form would be absolutely appropriate and would stand the test of time. The specifics, I understand why you wouldn't want to put them in there, and I think that a lot of legislation and regulation boxes us in my personal experiences with building codes primarily, and makes it hard to innovate. And I am hopefully about to bump up against some of that with some of the exciting projects that I'm hoping to work on. So Anyway, that's a separate issue. So, at some point, I would like to talk to you guys about accountability in the charter, which is something I tried to institute and made some headway in back in the last round, but that's not on the agenda right now, so.
Tony, we have to tell the TV land
Right.
who you are.
I'm Tony Duncan. I don't know what district I'm in. Town representative and on the Energy Committee.
Share.
Yeah, we don't want to brag. I'm the reluctant chair of the Energy Committee. So a couple of things. I like what David was saying about having it in the preamble. And I really think that this is an issue that's going to be around way beyond our next charter revision. So to me, this is such a huge global issue that I think it really merits having. And what you were saying is, also about not having piecemeal all these different things that we want to have in there. I think sort of the idea of resilience or something, but a way of making that really a crystallized, urgent part of the mission of the town. I really like what Stephen was saying about the town plan, because I think that really needs to be, accelerated. This is tangential, but there's so much support in this town for doing things about climate change and so little actual engagement. We only have 4 members on the Energy Committee now. And part of that is because it's been effective in doing certain things that are sort of minor and supporting things like Efficiency Vermont, and Stephen has brought stuff to us that we've been able to do. But there isn't the engagement of people who insist that this is a huge issue that we all need to be doing major things for. I think maybe something about that in the preamble, or something about in the charter about the urgency and the responsibility that all members of the community have. This isn't just the town government. It's not just an issue that is sort of as Django was saying. These aren't just like proposals. This is real science. This is an existential issue. And like the Energy Committee has been struggling to figure out, how can we be more effective? What can we do that's valuable? We do these little piecemeal things. We did a lot of stuff helping Efficiency Vermont. I felt really good about that. I helped give away a lot of like LED light bulbs and support people to get heat pumps. And I've done a lot of personal stuff. I rode here on my e-bike today. And I'm biking whenever I can to cut down my greenhouse gas emissions. And again, there was a few years ago, there were 1,000 people at this demonstration. Django fell on the ground and had to be dragged off, So there's just a tremendous amount of theoretical belief in this. And I think we have to do things to make it concrete and to convince people in the community that this is practical things that people have to do. And it isn't just sacrifices. I don't feel like I'm sacrificing by riding my bike here. I'm exercising. But I'm also making a statement. And I want to, the idea of it being procedural, I think is absolutely crucial. You can't have a town constitution that's saying, oh, we have to do all these specific things with these issues. But to me, the important factor is that this is crucial. We need to address it. And everyone in the town really should consider it their responsibility to do what they can to work on solving these problems.
Great, thank you. So,
Stephen knows anything else.
do you have anything to wrap up, Stephen? Are you?
Unless you have any questions.
Thanks for coming. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
So it seems as though, and David, you can tell me if this is not what you said, but that it's not doing away with carbon, not putting the energy goals in, but keeping the energy committee idea of putting it in the charter and the definition and sustainability coordinator, we put that aside and we deal with that again when
We talk
we do all the
about
other
it.
committees.
I was thinking about whether to wrap this up, some sort of motion is necessary.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was any specific action step other than a discussion of these possibilities.
Right,
So I think we'll track that energy coordinator and sustainability, energy
committee,
committee
Yeah.
and sustainability coordinator need to be part of those discussions later on. Also that sustainability and engagement need to be discussed when we're talking about the preamble, and those will just remain open for another work meeting, I think.
yeah. Does that sound
Unless
good?
somebody thinks we need a motion. I mean, sometimes it's nice to wrap it up with a motion to make a decision, but I don't think yours needed.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we have our set aside for the next conversation. The final thing on the agenda was, we had spoken early on, thank you, Stephen.
Okay, thank you.
And Frick and Tony and everybody. We had, the idea had come up about putting some kind of history in like the back of the charter, because, you know, it's sort of the debate of the whole 1959, you know, thing that we got in there, and maybe take that out and do a history. So, I think the question is that a direction we want to go in? And what kind of things would we want in the history? And then, you know, if we do want to do that, I'm happy to like help do that, but you know, what is everybody thinking? Peter?
Risk of being a broken record, I have a strong opinion about this. I think we need to be very cautious about putting things in the charter that don't need to be in the charter. The charter is a document we ought to guard to be the thing it's intended to be, as the statement of the structure of our government, and as little as possible about procedure, frankly. But like election procedures have to be in there, and you know, we're going to talk about town meeting, so which kind of town meeting, and you know, there's going to have to be some procedural information around that. But it's really about structure even more than it's about process. And to the degree that we go outside of structure and outside of process to tell stories about things, no matter how important, we're telling those stories in the wrong place, I believe. And so I think it would be great for us to work on, and I think actually the two of you have done heavy lifting on this already. When we bring this forward for the town to consider and act upon some months from now, I think having a separate document that accompanies it, that talks about the history of the town, talks about our process, talks about how we see this, you know, our actions at that time, or recommendations at that time, reflecting what we think the town needs in this document to, you know, move forward over the next decade and more. That feels right to me, that there is a bigger story to tell, but I think it should be an entirely separate document.
Clarifying question, should that be referenced in here, that this document exists that incorporates the history, or the concern being that it mandates that it is, potentially mandates that it gets updated as
Yeah, I mean,
the charter gets
I don't have as strong a feeling about that. If there was, you know, and Kate referred to it this evening as being something maybe that would slide in behind. And if it's really clearly something separate that's attached to it, I don't have as strong a feeling, because it would be something separate. But I think it would be great if we together achieve putting forward something that is as simple and clear as possible. And if we were to attach, you know, town history, then, you know, what about attaching something that speaks to the existential threat of climate change? And what about something that speaks to something else that other people are concerned about on a different night? The town history piece is broader and more on point with this effort for sure. And it still feels to me like a step outside of the essence of the work that we're doing.
Anybody else have a feeling?
Well, I agree with that, but I think it would be a shame if the work that the two of you did, going through all of those materials, is lost and not memorialized in some way so it's available for the next time.
Yes.
So to the extent that you all are willing and able to summarize what you found in looking at the historical materials, I think that would be a useful document to be available for the future, and we could talk about this process as well, so the next time they're not confused about what happened. But I agree that adding it to the chart, I'm in favor of taking out the original town meeting related statutes too. We run through them all, it's like, wait a minute, that's the law.
Yeah,
You know, we can't amend that.
right, that's right, that was
Right.
the 1959 stuff,
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree with that too, I agree, like, keeping this simple, because once we start adding or complicating ourselves.
And I'm willing to work with Kate on doing
Oh, yeah.
something. And we're keeping, the two of us are keeping
Yeah.
pretty extensive records for the next people that come
Yeah.
along, so.
Thank you.
And it also plays into when we start talking about the preamble, it's the same thing.
Yes,
You know,
it
how big do we want that to be?
Well, town meeting is a source of ideas.
Yeah.
It's a very vague language.
Yeah.
Right.
you
Yeah,
know? Very vague.
And lots of town charters have no preamble at all. Not to say we shouldn't have one, but lots of them don't. It's not necessary, and we should think hard about whether we want to put one in.
and it's always sometimes it's the loudest voices get into something that, you know, doesn't necessarily speak for the bigger community. So, all right, so we've kind of agreed on that. We won't put a history attached to the, or in it at all. And we'll have something so that in the future,
People will have it.
yeah. Does that sound good?
And
Thank you.
striking. So I'm not sure then if that might need the motion to Hannah and David to empower them to draft and strike the things in the preamble that we agree.
Yeah, but we're not gonna do that yet. We'll get to a second preamble discussion.
Okay,
Yeah, we're gonna have
okay,
I think that's gonna be a big discussion.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
will
so
be.
we're gonna put that on the agenda. Yeah, so do that.
perfect.
Okay, we did the, issues we wanted to talk about tonight. So I think what I'm gonna do for anybody who's watching us, the next meeting is gonna be February 15th. And at that meeting, it's gonna be, we're gonna talk about the form of government, which would be representative town meeting versus open town meeting. And then we have the powers of the people, which should be a good one. It's about voters petitioning for an article to adopt an ordinance. A new possible section, which is voters petitioning for the inclusion of a binding article at RTM and recall. So those are the things that are up at our next meeting.
Can anybody think of anybody besides Hillary, Francis, and Bob Fisher? Who ought to be to me? Should John Potter be there?
I assume he's always welcome.
And we'll shoot out the, what did we do the last time? It was how many days? We said the 8th, we wanted comment from the committee. So what's that? That was a week and a half before the meeting.
that?
I'm
not following you.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, I'm like talking to myself at the same time. The next meeting's on the 15th, so if you folks have any suggestions, if you get them to us by like February 5th.
You'll email
For any
us
other
3 or 4
topics.
days before. so
Yeah,
we'll-
Sure.
Yeah, we'll
We'll remind you.
We'll remind you.
I am gonna suggest that, although we'll begin a discussion of the form of town meeting in February, it will be something that we can put out
Yeah.
to town meeting members as town meeting process takes place
Yes.
at the informational meeting,
Yeah.
at the town meeting itself. And we might wanna at least indicate that we began this discussion.
Yeah.
And we hope that it can be revisited.
Yeah.
Particularly if our attendance is like it's been in the past.
Yeah, and that's why I'm thinking I'll work with Patrick, and if we get an email out to the RTM people about this, but I think you're right, we'll probably get more activity after town meeting when people are,
And I think we need to make it clear that this discussion is really, should there be a town meeting versus open?
Representative
Townwide.
Right.
Should it be representative or
Yeah.
all town.
And then a deeper dive into how town meeting is structured,
Yes.
operates, would be for for April, or actually May.
May.
The May meeting,
May.
right.
Right, like I said, I'm just saying
I think
that
that's right.
beginning the discussion in February, we might reserve the possibility of revisiting it
Yeah.
after town meeting, if there's interest,
Right.
if there is.
Hannah looks.
I wanna just, I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on this, but I wanna make sure that we're hearing from not just the town meeting people,
Right,
because they clearly already have an opinion about this. I
Yeah.
wanna
Yeah.
hear from other people that aren't involved and maybe why they're not involved, and
Yeah.
I don't know what the best way to sort of solicit opinions from people other than those
Right.
involved in RTM is, but.
Right. It's casting a wider net, yeah.
Over different types of participation in town government since I first got here in 1982. I'm often surprised at the lack of broader engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty consistent theme that there's a group of people who want to engage, and then many people just don't. And we've searched for a long, long time for ways to bring more people in, and I'm not sure how to make it come to fruition. Do you know how? Do you know how? Do you know how?
No, sir.
You know?
Fred?
Frick?
Take it seriously when they're like kindergarten, grade school. Kids should show up at town meeting as a field trip. There should be talk about voter registration when you're a sophomore in high school and looking forward to it 2 years later when you might get to register.
That's for the charter
mean-
15 years from now.
Indoctrination is what I'm trying to say. You gotta catch them early.
Yeah, yeah. But I will try to figure out, you know, I'll do like a longer press release giving everybody, like, here's what's coming up in the next 5 months. You know, we'll do whatever we can, because you're right. But David's right too, it's just so hard. But maybe we say to an RTM member, bring a friend who isn't an RTM member.
Bring a neighbor.
Bring your neighbor, so tell us why, they'll tell us why they aren't involved.
The two of us here have been on select board, right? And we have the former town manager and assistant town manager. And, you know, the group of people who we see really engage in town government is relatively small. And I consider it a privilege. I like being involved, but many people just got other stuff, you know?
The hybrid meetings actually have helped. We don't see that tonight. We haven't seen it in this process yet. But at select board meetings, there's definitely a wider cross-section of people in the community who participate now that they can do it from their home.
Yeah.
But it's still a small number compared to 12,000 residents.
I think there are a lot of people also that will watch this on BCTV next week or something, which is too bad that they're watching it after the fact, but.
That's very true.
Mhm.
I mean,
People do watch BCTV.
it
Do you know how many
amazes me, the
people
number of
think we've
people who will comment on, you know,
Yeah.
something that happened at the select board meeting last week or the week before, and
Yeah.
I've never even met these folks.
Yeah, people,
Yeah.
a lot of
It's amazing.
people do it, yeah.
They get a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
get
viewership.
comments about the DRB meeting that happened 2 weeks ago.
Sure,
Yeah.
stop you in the supermarket.
But to Hannah's point, in this process, we're trying to
Oh, yeah.
bring in perspective as opposed to just, knowing that people might be paying attention.
I think this would be one that hopefully maybe our communications person could create a little slide for social media as well. And if we can find a way to
Or
maybe
maybe
use some of the engaging words to
Yeah.
say, that it's not targeted at our RTM. It's targeted at do you have a government you want? Like, here is the time to talk about that form.
and make it clickbaity, for lack of a better term, to get people
Absolutely.
interested.
Exactly.
But this might be one for that vehicle
But
to
I
grab
think-
others.
I think we want to make it clear that this is not going to be a discussion about whether we're gonna have a town manager or a mayor,
Right.
because we had that discussion.
Even that discussion didn't bring a lot of
No.
people.
No, it
Well-
didn't.
Millicent invited me, and
Yeah.
there was, 5 people came. It was,
Yeah,
10 people.
So this is the second time that we've said we're not gonna have that discussion, and, my heart is in keeping the system that we have. I believe there's really, lots of reason to do that and not good reasons to change. But, I don't know that we did actually, I don't think we voted, for sure.
No.
And I don't think we've decided that we aren't gonna have that conversation, and I feel concerned about foreclosing the possibility that there might be people from the community who come and say, we need to talk some more about that mayor thing. I know it got defeated,
Right.
but,
No,
you
I
people
was
need to
just,
consider
I was
it.
just talking about the discussion that's
Oh,
on the
for February.
that's on the agenda,
Got it,
whether we have an RTM or we have an open
got
town.
it. Thank you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It made its way, the mayor versus town manager, into a proposed agenda. And I said, please, no. And then it was on the next one.
Well,
We can include it in the other forms of government.
I'm not asking that to be included. I do think when we're talking about forms of government, we need to name it and talk about how it differs from what we have and talk about how other options differ from what we have. And we're actually gonna be bringing some of that in when we do bring the research from the other charters. Because there are places in Vermont that have mayors, and they don't all have the same kind of mayor. They have, some of them have a mayor that's very much like the chair of the select board, and then others have a directly elected mayor that has more authority. And most don't have a mayor at all. So,
So maybe that's a point at which we can springboard off that discussion
sure.
into an agenda item at some point.
Yeah,
after
if
that.
it's necessary. I'm not advocating to have that be a separate, particular, specific discussion. I'm advocating that we not foreclose that possibility at this moment.
Okay, because somebody might mention it.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else we want to talk about before we head out?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll see everybody February 15th.
Great.
So.